Welcome back to the channel. My name is Zent, and this is my 2007 NC Mazda MX-5. And this is the car that I chose as a candidate for the best cheap driver's car a couple years ago. And so I went out and I bought one, and I've been tracking it for the past 2 years. And today we're gonna go over all of the things that are damaged on it and start to bring it back and track it for another 2 years. Now, before we get into what I need to fix, let's take a look under the hood and remind you guys that I do have an engine swap in here. And actually, you can't see that very well because the lighting is poor. But we are working with a 2.5 in here with stage 1 cams. It makes great power. It's about as fast as a Honda S2000, but it's a much lighter car, and so it's lighter on the consumables. One thing that I'm battling with it with this engine is heat. So with the heat, I have a very serious triple pass radiator in here to keep things cool. And I also just put in this cold air intake to open up the airflow and let the air flow through that radiator a little bit better and keep the temps down on the track. This also helped out with my intake air temperatures, and there's almost an argument about that with the Mazda Miata on the forums. They say that the intake does not help, but I logged the data and it does help. And so there's a lot of little nuances with this car where the community has a set belief, and I'm finding out that it's just not true. Another thing that I've done with the setup on this is I'm running a very big front sway bar on the track. There's no aero on this car, and that's how we set up the Honda S2000s back in the day. So same thing, when I did the roll couple calculations, I found that a lot of the off-the-shelf parts for this car weren't the way that I would spec it. And so I've been playing with that setup, and I've finally gotten the car just perfect, just where I want it. The other thing that I did to this was I put in an OS Geek and diff, and that was one of the best modifications for the car. A clutch type differential is necessary if you're serious about tracking your car. I am not a fan of the Torsen differentials. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but the OS Geek and diff transformed this vehicle, and it was way worth it. So let's go through the parts that I have here today. One issue that I have on the racetrack is that the car will not shift into fourth gear smoothly, so I have to wait to put it into fourth gear. And it turns out that I think it's the clutch hydraulic system. So the good news is I probably don't have to replace my transmission. So today we're going to try replacing the slave cylinder, the master cylinder, and the line, and then we're going to bleed it and see what happens. What happened the other day was I was in traffic driving on the 91, and I lost the clutch pedal entirely, so I had to pump it to get it back, but the car also wouldn't shift. And so I thought that was the end of my transmission, but I gave it a quick bleed and it started working okay again. I do think that something in there is messed up, so I'm just going to replace the parts. The other thing that is a problem is the hubs. The hubs on the front are known to fail. These are RX-8 hubs. They're a couple $100 a piece. And my hub did fail on the track, and it was sort of a catastrophic failure because I did lose the brakes, and there was fortunately no wall to run into, no other car to run into, so I just went off the track. And then I went to AutoZone and installed an AutoZone hub in the parking lot. But those hubs are terrible, the ones you get at AutoZone, and you really need to get the OEM hubs. So I guess I don't know my own strength, but these Harbor Freight screwdrivers are pretty bad. I was trying to undo these by hand, and they literally just broke. Let's just take a look at this rotor. This is 2 years of tracking, and you can see that it's starting to have some cracks, but overall, pretty amazing for how long I've been tracking it. So now, we're going to do the fun part, which is pulling the hub. Now I'll do the slide hammer in here. Make sure everything is clean, and then we'll go ahead and throw the new hub back on. So I'm going to tighten up those bolts and put everything back together and then repeat for the other side, but that's basically the hub installation. So that's the first part of our job. This is the slave cylinder here with this hard line. There's a soft line that goes in between to this other hard line that goes to the master. And these are both pretty beat up. So I'm glad I replaced them. I also bled the brakes while we're up here. I'm not gonna do the under tray today because I'm out of time, but I do wanna go test drive this while I still have some time. So I'm gonna put everything back together and then we'll go out and test drive it. Basically, I just have to put the wheels on and I'm good to go. Here's my new master down there, looks quite a bit better. New Castrol SRF brake fluid. And then there it is up there, looking good. You also notice that there is this hard line or braided line, and I just routed it through the stock location. So it's good to go. The clutch actually feels better. I'm gonna go out and test drive right now and see how it does. I've been pulled over by that officer so many times, it's not even funny. So immediately driving the NC with the basic maintenance that we did, it feels like a different car now, and I'm sort of thinking that my clutch hydraulic system was messed up the whole time because my shifter has never been this easy to get into gear. So probably I was doing some damage to the transmission over the years, but it works perfectly now. I can shift it hard into fourth, which I could not do before, and I'll show you once we get away from the city so that I don't get a ticket. The brakes also are very smooth and the pedal is firm again. I did boil the brake fluid when the hub failed before, so the brake pedal feels great. And the other thing about these hubs, the RX-8 hubs, is that I'm running zero toe alignment in the front, and when I had the AutoZone hub on after my OEM hub failed, the car would just wander all over the road, and that was because the hub had play in it, and that was a brand new hub. So you can get these brand new hubs from AutoZone and your car will wander all over the road. It's just, it's dangerous, to be blunt. And we can also launch this if I Now I do need to go out and bed the brakes. Ideally, I'd want to go up to much higher speed, but I don't want to get a ticket, so. That looks good. So you see the smoke, that's just the oil burning off of the rotor. So we got those nice and hot. All right, let me show you no lift shift here. So I'm in second. If I floor it, keep the gas pedal held down. There's third gear. There's fourth. And before, it would grind when I did that going into fourth. And so the new hydraulics for the clutch system have fixed the issue. The wheel bearings have tightened up the steering, and the brakes feel just perfect with these fresh rotors and the fresh fluid. This MX-5 is ready to go out to the racetrack, but it is summer right now and it's too hot to go to the racetrack, so I'm just going to enjoy this car on the back roads this summer. That is all I have for you on the MX-5. Thank you for watching, and make sure that you enjoy your car.